Let me ask you something. What if you could build one of the most powerful AI models in the world, but do it for just a tiny fraction of the cost of its rivals? Well, a new AI from China is doing exactly that, and it's making the entire tech world sit up and take notice. So today, we're going to unpack DeepSeek V3. I want to start with just one number: 671 billion. Take a second and just look at that. In the AI world, a number that big could be anything, really. Data points? Maybe. Hours of computer time? Could be. Or maybe it's something way, way bigger. Let's find out. And there you have it. That's the number of parameters in DeepSeek V3. Now, you can think of parameters as all the little knobs and dials an AI can tweak to learn and make connections. And having 671 billion of them, that's just a colossal number. It puts this model right up there in the big leagues, giving it a truly massive brain to work with. All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we'll get to know this new AI giant. Then, we'll dig into the secret that makes it so efficient. After that, we'll see how it stacks up against the big names, check out what it's doing in the real world, and finally, we'll get into the tough ethical questions. Let's dive in. So, let's start with the big picture. There's a new giant in the AI arena. And believe me, this isn't just another model. It's a serious contender that's really shaking up the global AI race. So what is DeepSeek V3 really? Well, it's a top-of-the-line AI model built to go head-to-head with household names like GPT-4. But its real goal, its core mission, is to attack AI's biggest problem: the absolutely insane costs and computer power you need to play at the top level. It's all about making elite AI performance accessible. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how on earth can a model with 671 billion parameters be efficient? I mean, that sounds like it should be incredibly slow and ridiculously expensive to run, right? Well, it turns out DeepSeek has a secret weapon baked right into its design. And that secret weapon is called a Mixture of Experts architecture, or MOE for short. Now, the easiest way to get your head around this is to stop thinking of the AI as one single giant brain. Instead, I want you to picture a team of super specialists. You've got your math genius, your coding whiz, your history buff. You get the idea. When a problem comes in, you don't bother the whole team. You just tap the one right expert on the shoulder. And here's pretty much how it works in practice. First, a task comes in. Then, a really smart internal router looks at the problem and instantly goes, this one's for the coding expert. Finally, that one specialist gets to work and solves it, using just a tiny slice of the model's total power. The rest of the team, they just chill, saving energy until they're needed. It's brilliant. And this is the result, and honestly, it's just incredible. The model has this vast library of 671 billion parameters at its disposal, but for any one job, it only needs to use about 37 billion. It's kind of like having access to every book ever written, but you only have to pull one specific book off the shelf to find your answer. This is so much more than just an improvement. It's a total game changer for AI efficiency. Okay, so all that clever engineering is great, but it doesn't mean a thing if the performance isn't actually there, right? So the big question is, how does DeepSeek V3 really stack up against the titans of the industry? Well, the answer is, it stacks up incredibly well. This chart here shows the scores on all the standard industry tests. You know, the big exams that measure everything from general knowledge to super complex math and coding problems. And as you can see, DeepSeek V3 isn't just competing. It's right there, matching the scores of the best models from OpenAI and Anthropic. It is officially playing in the big leagues. But this is where the story gets really wild. Just look at this cost comparison. Training GPT-4 costs an estimated $100 million. DeepSeek V3, around $6 million. Let that sink in. It's delivering the same top-tier performance for less than 10% of the cost. This doesn't just change the game, it rewrites the entire rulebook for who can afford to build world-class AI. And you gotta understand, this has been a super fast, super aggressive strategy. Just look at this timeline. They were launching specialized models late last year. Their V2 model started a massive AI price war in China just a few months back. And now V3 is here, doubling down on that same killer formula: push performance to the absolute limit and slash costs to the bone. So, we've seen the powerful tech, we've seen the amazing benchmarks, but what does all this actually mean in the real world? Let's shift gears from theory to practice and see where DeepSeek is already being put to work. As you'd probably expect, DeepSeek's tech is already making waves across some really important fields.
You can see here that the industries that crunch a lot of data, like finance and healthcare, are jumping on board in a big way. But we're also seeing it get picked up fast in marketing, education, and even environmental sciences.
And hey, we're not just talking about ideas on a whiteboard. This stuff is happening right now. Big banks are using it for smarter chatbots. Hospitals love that it's open source, which means they can run it on their own servers to keep sensitive patient data completely private. And in every single one of these cases, the super low cost is making these powerful tools available to way more people and organizations than ever before.
All right, let's zoom out for our final and maybe most important section. Let's look at the bigger picture here. What does a model like this really mean for the AI world? And what are the tricky ethical questions that always come along with this kind of power? You know, one of the things the AI community has really praised about DeepSeek is their commitment to working out in the open. It's a spirit that's perfectly captured by this idea that sharing what you build is essential to moving the whole field forward. By making their work public, they're basically inviting the entire world to come help them build it, test it, and make it better. And this whole philosophy has led to some really positive things that make them stand out. Their code is open source, which builds a ton of trust. They also did something pretty incredible. They submitted their model for a formal peer review, just like a scientific paper. That's a huge deal. It all adds up to a culture that feels more like a university research lab and less like a secretive tech company. So it's a really compelling story of open science and amazing progress, right? But is that the whole story? Because with any technology this powerful, coming from anywhere in the world, you have to look at all the angles. And that brings us to a really significant challenge here. Reports are showing that the platform has to follow some very strict censorship rules, especially when it comes to politically sensitive topics within China. And that has people worried, because ultimately we want these AIs to be a source of complete, unbiased information. So the question becomes, if an AI is built on a foundation where it has to ignore or change certain topics, can it ever be truly objective? And that really leaves us with this huge, fascinating question for the future. DeepSeek is the perfect example of this major tension in AI right now. On one hand, you have this amazing commitment to open, collaborative science. But on the other, you have the reality of operating under strict government control. As we go forward, the question we all have to think about is this: will it be that spirit of openness or the need for control that defines the next chapter of AI? That's the challenge ahead. Thanks for joining me.